Today, we have the privilege of having on the show our very dear comrade, Haleesa, who is a co-host of the Out of the Box podcast, a fantastic new-ish podcast that has been rocking the airwaves in Nigeria and beyond. We're very excited to have her on today to discuss a range of issues that have been percolating in our kind of conversational spaces. And we've tried to schedule a number of interviews with the Out of the Box podcast crew before. But yeah, various forces, both physical and otherwise, have tried to intervene. So it's quite amazing to have you here today. We're very happy to be chatting. Thank you for joining us, Haleesa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi, hello everyone.
Yeah, it's nice to do a bit of a crossover discussion. Because I suppose your voice will be familiar to some of the people who listen to us, and vice versa. Maybe not vice versa, but at least it
Yeah.
flows in one direction, I suspect. Today, we wanted to talk a bit about sexism, feminism, and which of those two forces is winning in Nigeria, basically. If it was just that, I suppose it would be a pretty short conversation, but I think it would be worth reflecting on some of the recent occurrences that these two themes are kind of relevant to. Um, I suppose one way to start thinking about it, thinking through that topic is to, um, yeah, acknowledge that Nigerian society in some very profound ways is quite misogynistic. I'm not breaking news by saying that. Or if I am, I mean, you should not crawl back into the hole you've been living under because, yeah, this is fairly evident. And I think one of the areas where it's probably most obvious is in electoral politics, right? I mean, it's kind of a extremely male-dominated field in Nigeria, even by global South standards. Actually, it's probably not that much better in the global North, but Nigeria stands out, I think, as probably one of the more patriarchal political systems. And yeah, this manifests outside of electoral politics as well, like enrollment rates for women in schools, employment for women, uh, like land ownership. I mean, any number of indices point to a society that's not really working very well for women, on one hand. On the other hand, you could say that there has been some kind of a counter movement occurring, certainly in the media and in the kind of discursive arena, social media, I suppose, um, around feminism and around women's emancipation. I mean, I guess some notable examples would be, say, Chimamanda's book, right? Try not to snake America. Uh, we should all be
Dream
feminists.
count?
Oh no, no, no,
Oh,
sorry,
oh,
the
oh. Okay.
manifesting dream count, they'll
You said the
probably
manifesto. Is that what you said?
isn't we should all be feminists a manifesto.
Oh,
I
no,
think
go
that's the
ahead. That's
subtitle.
interesting. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so that's one notable recent work of feminist thinking, I guess, that has arisen in Nigeria. And I think also, there's just been more conversation online, I suspect, depending on what kinds of circles you're in, about women's emancipation, a sort of normalization of the discourse of feminism to some extent online. I know it gets pushed back still, but and then of course, there's this burst into offline spaces as well. There've been kind of women's protests, women's movements to strike down particular elements of misogynistic legal tradition or laws. Um, Notably, there was kind of strong representation and participation of women in NSAS, probably best expressed by the role played by the feminist coalition, etc. So you can say that if there's a misogynistic uh, wing or pole or element or component of society, it's not gone unchallenged. Um, and I suppose, yeah, you saw this play out very dramatically recently with the um, Senate controversy around a senator, Senator Natasha Akpoti Oduagan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who was suspended after making allegations that she was sexually harassed by the Senate president. So, very misogynistic kind of political situation. And then there was a massive public pushback that's ongoing, that hasn't necessarily changed the situation in the Senate, but that does suggest that these kinds of incidents don't go without challenge. Okay, so that's a very long intro. But what I'm saying is that it seems like there's some sort of push and pull. So to phrase this as a question, I guess, Haleesa, I would wonder what you think about where we are on the trajectory of women's liberation in Nigeria. Is this an optimistic moment? Are things changing in some respect? Or is it the more things change, the more they stay the same in some ways? So over to you. What do you think of all this?
Yeah, trajectory is a good question. You know,
Mm.
the feminist movement, I mean, if we want to talk about it theoretically, we know like the first wave, second wave, third wave, fourth wave. I'm one of those people that like to think Nigeria does not really go through things in those kind of like chronological order where it's like sometimes you're like, okay, right now, if we want to even talk about the economic situation of the world, we're like everybody's trying to be on that fifth industrial revolution wave or anything like that, AI. And you're like,
Yeah,
Nigeria, we're still kind of like in the stone age, but then we have smartphones, so it's like, but and
right.
we have like a couple of skyscrapers. What stage are we at? Right.
A
So
couple.
kind of, yeah, so kind of similar when it comes to feminism too. But, feminism movement, I even think that maybe your audience, I don't really know, but the kind of audience that I think would be interested in this type of conversation, they might even have a lot of pushback because they don't essentially think feminism is something that African people should be talking about. So, in fact, the question, even coming from the premise of this is a thing, and then
Yeah.
we are progressing in a certain way, it might even be something that people kind of question you if you are. I mean, people will ask you if you're asking the right questions.
Mm.
But if we're going to sit on liberal you know even though i
Yeah.
do I, I do think there is like some benefit in that, like real okay, if we're going to just sit on the understanding of what on this context, the
Yeah.
trajectory of what women have, the struggle or like the organizing of women to actually try to say gain autonomy agency in Nigeria has been one that I think to a certain level has regressed. I
Okay.
think
Right.
right now to even say that we are doing something is kind of laughable. I think
Mm.
there are different types of societies. There are societies that, first of all, maybe the mood of the mood will change, and then policies will follow, or like government or something tangible will follow it to help. And there are some places where you have to make policies and you force the people to act accordingly. So
Right.
Nigeria seem to be acting. Sometimes we try. I don't know. We seem to be acting like the society is changing. We're having conversations, even though we don't have anything tangible to back it up. But I even find that
Mm.
questionable too, especially in this modern time. If I say modern time, maybe let's say I'm only more familiar with like um this new era, like let's just say after 1997. I think everybody wants to start everything after 1999, since Obasanjo came to power, the Fourth
Right.
Republic. To be honest, I
Yeah.
even think you can even take it from there. Like if you want to say, let's start from that type of era where it's like, yeah, like there were women representing in politics in a certain to a certain degree. You could see
Mm-hmm.
women representing to a certain degree and like trying to, and some people would take that as something in itself. But that is
Right.
also questionable. But for me, generally, I think we can divide it into like, societal thinking or societal perception of what women are or what men are. And then you can also talk about if there's anything tangible that has been done to, like maybe in policy or anything, to make women's life better. In that way,
Yeah.
nothing has been done really. I don't think
Mm.
anything has been done. And then in the other aspect, in like just organizing like socially and things like that, I think because we look to the West a lot, then we
Mm.
try to kind of emulate them. But um in that way, we try to emulate the West, and even emulating the West too is not everything that we do is not done right. I think we emulate
Right.
them, but we still understand where we are. But there's sometimes it's like what we decide to take as what our identity is not right. But we stick to those kind of identities, like what we think is supposed to be a woman, or what we think is our role, and everything like that.
Mm,
What we think is it is to be African. Um, a lot of us take the part that I think, is not necessarily the what it actually is to be African, like pre-colonial African, to term it to be African, and want to hold on to that.
mm,
I don't believe generally. I think a lot of people have a lot of belief in the Generation Z, the Gen Z, that
mm,
maybe they've
mm.
changed something. To be honest, I find it to be a lot regressive. I don't see any organizing. Yeah, people come online and vent, but like our mothers, they used to go for women meeting. They used
Right.
to meet, they used to put their resources together, they used to try to achieve something for themselves.
Well,
Even
and they
market
still do,
women used
right?
to come. Yeah, they used to like put money together. Even up until now, they used to put resources together and actually try to do something for themselves. Like, but I don't really see that now. So yeah, maybe there's conversations, but I just think like there's just a Nigerian factor in everything that just makes everything. I don't see it as a trajectory that is like going up.
Okay.
I just see it a lot of Nigerian factor in it, and it's playing out in such a way that this is just like a more perception thing. I just feel we're stagnant, or we've regressed. I don't see any progress. To be honest,
Right, right, right.
I don't see progress. But
Okay.
I'm just saying.
No, I hear where you're coming from, and I mean I probably agree in large part. Um, but I wonder how you'd respond to some, specific examples of recent occurrences that optimists may want to latch on to as signs of progress. So
Example,
yeah, I hang on, I'm
having
coming to it.
having four women in the Senate.
No, 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 no. So I'm saying I think the point you're making is hardest to dispute when it comes to the electoral arena. Evidently, that's worse than it used to be. I mean, I think we've gone down from some 10, 15 women or something to four. So, I mean, from horrible uh to worse than horrible. Um, but I guess outside of the electoral arena, in the public sphere, I guess in the realm of culture, let's say. Do you think that some gains have been made? I mean, just perhaps even in private, do you think that any gains have been made in recent times? Yes, I like your dating of the history we're talking about to the Fourth Republic, the kind of current moment. Um, yeah, I mean, do you think there's been any kind of normalization of, say, women in the workplace, or say like a woman's right to exist, as an equal, broad in broad terms, in
You
the
know,
household,
uh-huh.
and I guess, yeah, I mean, how would you? So maybe let's address that question first, and then I want to come back to some of the kind of cultural touchstones that people might refer to. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I think I do this thing where I might just go on this tangent, and it's just me trying to be as factual or as frank as I want to be, but then it might turn
yeah.
out to be pessimistic. So there's this kind of like communication thing where you have to first of all talk about good things before you go to the bad. And I miss that.
No, no, no.
So
No, no, no,
so
no, no, no. You feel
yeah.
no obligation to do that on the
No, no,
Nigerian
no, no, no.
Scam
This,
podcast.
yeah, just self-reflecting. But
Okay.
yeah, yes. Um, we never had a time where women were not supposed to work. I don't think that is the same with like, you know, let's say in the West where men went for war, and then women had to go out to take the jobs, and when the men came back, they had to and then they had to go back into the house.
Right.
Um, I don't know that there was a time. Maybe you might have that. So I don't know if there was exactly a time that we can use the same type of timeline that other people use when they are talking about feminism, or when they are talking about women's rights. When they are like
Mm,
women are not allowed to work, and now they are allowed to work. I don't know that. But even when they are talking about women not earning as much as men in the same position, okay, maybe I'll probably say if there were things like longer, what's that period called after birth?
Okay, yeah, like
post
postpartum.
postnatal post that they give you like 6 months, 3 months. So
Yeah, yeah.
okay, if there is that period, if it's longer, then you say okay, maybe there's something that's been done that like makes it better for people. But women in Nigeria or in Africa have never really been in a place where they're like there's this thing that happened in the world and it has to push you guys to the back and then you're not working
Right.
anymore. So we have not really had that sort of dynamic to the point that it's like we have to there was something else that now happened that had to bring us back to the forefront, right? I think I was watching something recently in about like the differences between like Nigerian people and like Kenyan people, and Kenyans were talking about like their mothers having to work a lot more, like they had more like they had some kind of like events that happened. But Nigeria is in a type of situation where which makes it kind of like very difficult sometimes to tell people that women are oppressed. They don't really like agree immediately, except if you now
Mm,
have to bring in like maybe the conversation about religion and things
mm.
like that. That's when it's now you can make a case. And the fact that maybe in some parts of the country women are not allowed to like develop themselves and like have if full like have your full um agency or like your
Yeah,
full working
yeah.
capacity, so you won't be able to build yourself before you enter into anything, and then it puts you in a place where at the end of the day money is the most valued resource now, and because money is very much valued, if you do not have source of money, then it feels like you are beneath the person, whoever, or you're
Right.
beneath. So yeah, so the changes that we've seen is a lot of women started like getting married a lot later than maybe their
Mm,
parent generation did. So because
right.
of that, they had the time to accumulate for themselves more money. So that's the major
Mm,
change. And we have more people telling you to you know get know what you want to do, try to
mm.
prioritize yourself, get some things done for yourself so that whatever you're trying to do later in life, you would also be able to have a voice. So that's like the
Right.
major thing that I would say has happened in Nigeria. Like, it's not completely like, it's not as broad as or as groundbreaking or as swift as other things
Right.
happened in other
Right.
places. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, but
Mm.
I mean, sorry, but out of curiosity, why would you say that shift occurred? This
As in why women
increasing,
marrying later?
yeah, why increasingly more women marry late? I mean, not to preempt the answer, but isn't there an ideological strain to it as well? Especially when you
Mm-hmm.
when you narrow it down. I don't want to narrow it down, but even with the monetary aspect to it, is it that like some sort of ideal? Isn't it a voluntary thing as rather than that it's almost like men, I mean, or like that men have decided that that they wouldn't marry early too. You know, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if my question makes any
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yes, I do believe that. Um, I'm one of those people that try not to infantilize women too. That I'm like, why is it that people act like women do not make these decisions by themselves? Like they there was actual, I'm sure there was actual progression to this point where they're like, yes, you have to do this and do that. It didn't just. So yeah, you're on point with that question. I personally think there are a couple of reasons. Like maybe would
Mm.
say, um one reason would be that really things have gotten a lot more difficult. Like you cannot do anything without those kind of resources. Like even if you are previously okay, we understand how things have gotten super expensive, but that's just like talking generally. But before, what we understood, even like just one or two generations ago, one income can take care of the family, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think everybody can still feel valued to a certain level, even though they had their own issues. Like, I
Yeah.
think with every generation comes a different set of challenges. But I think people now started seeing that the more like those resources got scarce, the more the person that's bringing it becomes a lot more important, or the person that does not
Right.
participate in bringing it would now be like less valuable. So if you are
Mm,
in a family situation, or like in a place where you are not bringing that kind of like monetary resource in, the value that you're bringing to the table is not as substantial. So you might be treated not as nicely, or so you have to.
Mm.
So mothers started telling people, and everybody started saying, people got exposed to, we can't take away the internet, we can't take away the world, we can't isolate ourselves. Everybody started, there's a lot more experience out there for people to like learn from, and people know more things now. Like a lot of people,
Mm.
a lot of older women are willing to share more, so people are hearing things and they're like, oh, this is, people are a lot more, interested. And I think
Yeah.
even men too, like a lot of people are not hopping into people don't have any, like, people cannot own homes in their 20s, people
Yeah.
can't do a lot of
Hey,
things. So
20s. I mean, definitely not. I mean, 30s is
yeah, in your
even
30s you can't
ambitious.
own
Yeah.
you can't own, yeah. So so it's kind of like in this hardship. I don't know how we're supposed to now play it out to be the opportunity for women, right?
mm,
Where it's like, we, all of us as a collective, things are getting harder for us, but this is where I as a woman have to now bring something, to the
Right.
table, and I have to now record this as a win for myself, or for women,
Mm. Mhm.
so that's why it's kind of like, okay, yes, a win is still a win, but since sometimes the anti-capitalist mind is just like, oh, how do I process this, right? You're like, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess you are now more free by being more enslaved to someone else. It's like,
here's what I think I hear you saying. I mean, so if I talk back a bit and reiterate your response to Said's previous or earlier question as to the trajectory, and I think that in a nutshell, you have the opinion that patriarchy hasn't softened, at least not one bit. Okay, and that things are increasingly, or perhaps worse than it was, in the time of our own forebears, right? But there's also this um, side of the equation where I also hear you say that the economy has forced, some part of patriarchy, or that the economy is responsible for the pushback that patriarchy also is getting. I don't know if that's how you'd frame your own response. I mean, because there's a part of it that has some balance. On the one hand, you're saying not much has changed with the men folk, but you're also saying that because of the economy, um, you don't have. I don't want to use. Um, you don't have the. You don't. There's a limit to how much you have of alpha males in the Nigerian society.
From an
Um,
earning standpoint.
yeah, from the earning, especially in the house at the household level, where realities are that um, for a house to function properly, a house with say maybe two, three kids, everybody has to bring something into the pot, So the woman brings in, and then so you then have men who can't say that I'm going to marry. My wife has to be a teacher, as it used to be some years, some decades ago. So in a nutshell, I'm saying, is there any place in you think in your own response, the way I'm hearing it, I'm just trying to clarify, you know, maybe both for myself and for some listeners. Is there any place in your response that allows for the balance of, oh yes, patriarchy is still strong, still well and alive, and that, but that there's also a part of the economic, dynamics of the household that increasingly um, brings down the level of alpha males that you have within the Nigerian society.
so the case of Nigeria is very interesting for me because when we look at other places, right? I know a lot of people don't like to do too much of comparison, but we have to. But when you look at other places, you feel like women are dominating more because everybody can bring to the table the same way. But Nigeria has kind of almost always been the same, especially southern Nigeria, let's say. It has always
Yeah.
almost always been the same. But we have religion factor, which makes people to like downplay it. Like the mom can be bringing to the table the same way, but she'll always say no, like no, it's the dad that is bringing it to the table that way. So like women have always been you know, we even know that in, like, let's say the southeast part, they would even like make sure the lady gets the education first, or much more than like, and then the male
Yeah.
will like go for apprenticeship. So they've always kind of contributed to the table almost the same way. But if there was no that religious factor that makes it like you're like you have God-given power, right? Or you are the God-given head, we might actually like be in a kind of like a different society. Would not even be looking at it in the same way. So I think because people have already
Then,
kind of like given up that power to, so their own, the patriarchy is almost going to continuously exist in our own case, because yes, the economy factor is there, where it's like we can all bring to the table, so it relieves you. You cannot perform as an alpha male in that way, but you already have that
behind closed
ordained.
doors.
Yeah, you can't like, yeah, you can't, but you still feel like just because you're born a man, and just because you're born um just because of some kind of cultural practices, you have that type of, you're still going to have to be given that respect. So our
Yeah.
own case is going to be an interesting one, where it might not just easily just go away because
Mm.
yes, there's still going to be, I also, these things are, you kind of like have to keep going back and forth, and you kind of have to keep measuring out your opinions to these things, because it's like you'll be contradicting yourself sometimes. But yet we have that part, everything, that power play that has to do with material and everything like that. And then we now have the added version of like just our belief system, which
Yeah.
makes it hard for people to just not be the head of the family because they cannot provide. Even though, because they cannot provide, we can now say, yeah, uh we can now say that power is shaking a bit,
Mm.
more than how it's going to look like when you can completely like provide. So I think, yeah, there's definitely a point there.
I mean, but based on this, how would you assess? I mean, maybe not necessarily explain, but assess what seems to be, okay, let's say, the rise of an explicitly feminist perspective in
Okay.
Nigerian discursive spheres. I mean, online certainly, but also in the mainstream media. There's, I think in the past decade or so, maybe 15 years or so, like feminism comes up more. And I made reference to Chimamanda's book, earlier book, We Should All Be Feminists, as one
Yes.
example of this, but also, the Feminist Coalition, um, this kind of various online phenomena of like just the celebration of misandry in some corners, um, people being parts of various covens, a kind of like celebration of, I don't know if it's playful, I guess sort of playful witchcraft. If you know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe that's a less serious version of what we're talking about, but you get
No,
my
no,
point.
but it's
There's,
actually a thing. Yeah, it's
right, it
it's
kind
an
of is a
archetype
thing.
of a female archetype, where it's like you're either,
Yeah.
if
So,
you're a black woman, you're either a witch, or like you're like a you're a mommy, or you're like
right.
so yeah, it's a thing.
And
But
it seems
yeah.
like it's a thing that people are like, they're sort of um
Mommy
taking
Walker.
back.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're kind of taking it back. It's not, people sort of adopting these kinds of previously slanderous um, characterizations as a sort of sign of pride or identity of like actualization.
You think that
Yeah.
now we have more conversations and like gender wars? Do you believe that there's a rise in gender wars?
Um,
Obviously.
Nominally, yes, I would say. I think on the surface, and I guess
Nominally.
in the sense that I've not done any serious investigation of it. So just on
Yeah.
the surface, based on vibes, let's say I would say yes. And I mean, so we're doing some deep structure analysis previously. I want to make this a little more shallow. and focus on this kind of like discourse ecosystem. And on that level, do you think that there's more feminism nowadays, or is that a mirage?
Hmm. As compared to what?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I guess like I want to say when we were growing up, but that would be different t times in some respects. No, I mean, I guess like as compared to no, so let's make it like let's say in the past 3 to 4 years
Third report.
relative to the 3 to 4 years
Hmm.
before that, you know, or should
Yeah.
we say like a kind of pre-Chimamanda and post-Chimamanda period,
Yeah. Like, oh
as
no,
a
me
kind of
myself,
as a
I
rough
do.
metric.
I was going to change my
No,
Twitter profile name recently to like some cringe like feminist, like
Hmm.
something, not like because feminist is cringe, but because like the conversations they were having around feminism was just
Right.
like I want to be like a feminist in a way that when people ask you, are you a feminist? I'm like, yeah, I'm like the worst feminist like you ever know. Like, because
Right.
people get turned off immediately when you are talking to someone and they ask if you're a feminist. They want to be like, oh wow, I'm scared of you, or like in your
Right.
coven, or you
Right.
guys you hate men or things like that. I'm like, I kind of enjoy it. Like, I'm like, cool. I think being
No,
a
but this is
feminist
this
is
is kind of what I'm
least.
referring to. Like
Yes. So
that
I'm
that
just
there
trying to like
might
get
have
you
been a
there.
certain kind of
Since,
normalization of that
right,
sort of like, okay,
right.
it's kind of
Yeah.
okay in certain corners to really or at least pretend to hate
Yes.
men, like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but for me, it's like if you're a woman in this current climate, I think even being a feminist is almost like the least radical thing you can even do. It's crazy that people think it's the most radical thing you can do, but like being a feminist is like the first, is almost like first you should hate the condition of women like in the
Right,
sense
right,
of,
right.
if you know the way things are expensive right in Nigeria, most people are in different type of relationship just for transactions, and
Mhm.
the condition of like oh no, you can cut
Emeka
me off anytime, no
Emeka
problem.
is taking notes.
Yeah, so being in being a oh, I hate the condition of women right now is almost like should just be default kind of. Maybe that's what
Right,
Chimamanda was.
right. So,
I know Chimamanda did some type of analysis which I, myself and Chimamanda, I think we differ in some sense, but yeah, so
that's
in that space of work, I think
yeah,
if you are female, that you maybe you were buying menstrual pad maybe 400 and now is 900, or
yeah,
um you know that people you've come across people that even think that they've been brainwashed to think that they don't need those types of materials because it has some sort of, just because they can't be provided with them, they told them that it's something that is some sort of something that they should ascribe to some weird, I don't know, bush behavior or something. So it's almost like people are not even, I don't know how many you can call people on the street right now. You can count 20 women out of in their 20s, in their 30s, and ask them who has a gynecologist. And you probably would, maybe one out of 20, one out of 50, one out of 100. In fact, which is what is
really,
gynecologist? Like right now, people do
yeah,
not even have doctor, like
yeah,
general
yeah, yeah.
physician. So
Well, yeah,
the
most
the
people don't have
situation of
healthcare.
people,
Yeah, yeah,
because yes, I know that sometimes people are like, don't make some issues very gender specific, but it's like um some things are gender specific.
yeah.
So if you see some kind of thing, some kind of care that people go through, people just like engage in, there are sometimes you just see a 22 years old female in another country and you just get mad because of the kind of care, the type of care, like the person already has their physician, they have their
Yeah,
gynecologist, they
yeah,
have like timer, something that's checking what kind of changes is happening to their body. There are things that, but the average Nigerian female does not even have time to think about that. So I think for me, like those kind of things just makes me so angry. And there are some conversations
mm,
that I see and somebody want to start arguing with me about if women are having some kind of issues, and I'm just like, you know what, yes, And because we have platforms that encourage that, then it's like you see more people talking about it. Obviously, everybody is not like ideologically sound, and I allow it personally because I'm like, I don't believe in a perfect victim. People can be crazy and stupid, and they can express whatever it is that they feel like they are wronged in. Sometimes, a lot of the time these days, I've been having a lot of issues with some women, whatever. But it's just like, you know what? We go back and forth. So yes, there's that conversation. There's that thing about people like saying there's a lot of women that can taking pride,
Mm.
that find it in their own circle too. Because we have to talk about internalized misogyny too. It's not a lot of women that think anything they go through in the world or that is gender specific is something they should challenge.
Right.
So it's also a problem that they have to also deconstruct. So there are sometimes that you see some kind of fight that they're having, that it's like, yeah, they're fighting with men or something, but it's almost like they are fighting with themselves. I think I've seen more cases where internally, because there are some women that identify as, there are some, in a way, they're kind of like, yeah, let's just have more women in banking to solve our problem,
Mm.
or let's just have more women CEO. And there are some people are like, what are you talking about? So
Yeah.
it's like they are like internal. So it's almost like okay, the first phase was kind of like the one that maybe you thought it was simple, in the sense of it was not that you don't see it's very simple in the sense of we just want representation. we just
Mhm.
want we just
Like
want to,
basic
yeah,
rights.
basic level of like, let's just be able to sit at the table, let's just be able to talk. But I think, I'm not sure people are doing this level of analysis though. But I think people are coming to a phase now where they know that they have to argue about conversation. They have to argue about things like surrogacy, even internally, because we have some feminists that are saying it's okay, and there are some people that are saying no, just because you have money does not mean you should tell another poor woman to carry your baby. So there are like a lot of other conversations, in as much as we can talk about, yeah, there's also more conversations that's like, should a man pay for you or should a man not pay for you? you know
Mm.
there are some types of, there are conflicts that go like that, like there are Twitter bans, and there are some conversations that are very not productive. They are like, yeah, but I think many people are getting to that phase where they also have to deal with some kind of, because we are all part of the patriarchy system. I also grew up in a
Right.
certain way, like, so you have to deconstruct it. You have to talk to people that you think alike, and you see them acting a certain way, and like, what's going on here? This is not what I thought of this feminist should look like. Or then this one is like, you know what, if you're telling me that I must act like the feminist that you knew 10 years ago, I'm not just talking about sitting and chatting with the boys. I'm talking about some other things. So, and there are some people that is not that virtuous. Okay, they are like, no, I'm talking about, let's just get these people out. you know, let's just clear the stage. We don't need these people. So the conversations go any other way, but I think people are trying to figure out the best way to have it, because they knew that what they were doing 10 years ago was just about, let's have a voice and let's just talk. But like, what are you saying if you're not saying anything that has done anything for me? You know, if what you're
Right.
saying hasn't done anything for me, like, okay, then I'm just going to start screaming, or I'm just going to
Yeah.
start, yeah. So I think, yeah, there's that too. But I don't know
So
if people are
so
doing that level of analysis to it though. I don't know. But yeah, go ahead.
right. So you're not really impressed with the talk, and I mean, it sounds like you're saying the talk is going in so many contradictory directions that it's hard to really see the increased discourse around feminism as progress, right? That maybe, first of all, it's hard to say that there's a clear increase. I mean, it may just be that um, that we have more access to the discursive sphere because
I
we all
think, I think,
can type on our
yeah,
phones or
I think the thing is, I tend to restrain when I understand the environment that these conversations are happening. The
Mhm.
Nigerian factor. Nigerians cannot do any, like, we we talk ourselves to sleep. Like, I just
Right.
feel like,
Okay.
yes. So I just feel like I do not believe in a lot of in a lot of things that people say. So yes,
Mm.
people are talking. So this is just me. Of course, I'm talking to you. So yeah, this, a lot of what I'm saying is my opinion too. But I think in as much as I want to see anything as progress, I tend to have that block where I just feel like, oh, this is Nigeria we're talking about. The women are gonna talk. They're not organized to do anything. They'll all go to sleep.
Okay,
Like,
okay, okay, okay. But hang on. I mean, so let's throw in some
yeah,
examples of like some concrete shifts,
okay,
even if partial, that have
yeah,
occurred, in the last decade or so. I mean, there was the big documentary around sex for grades.
yeah, right.
Hey, I'm not saying that has been eradicated, but at least it's been
Mm-hmm.
spotlighted in a way that probably makes it a little more difficult to navigate for sexual harassing, like lecturers,
Right.
to coin a
Yeah.
term. I guess, of course, we need to check whether this is really true, but certainly in the university where it was filmed, where the BBC documentary was filmed, I think it was Unilag. I suspect, it's kind of like some of those previous norms have been unsettled somewhat. There've been like violence against women acts, like laws domesticated in many states in Nigeria. Probably not nationwide, but more states than previously. I mean, yeah, you could ask yourself, why is it just now that we're making it illegal to be violent against women? I mean, and that's a fair question, but um, those things have happened more recently, it appears. And then, yeah, I guess the success of some women in the public arena, um, even if in institutions that are questionable, like people did celebrate um, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's success at the WTO, or
Okay.
the kind of okay, hang on, let me finish. Let me land. Or or um, the commercial success of Chimamanda's books, for instance, as a sign that something is happening. So I mean, okay, these are different kinds of things, but I wonder how you'd respond, to these kinds of phenomena. Like, are they again, are they just mirages that are meant to distract us, or is there any is it movement without motion, motion without movement, or are we
No,
getting somewhere?
okay. I think people talk about equality in is it opportunity? Or what do they
Yeah,
say? When they say equity and equality, then try to make those kind of distinctions. I think many people might say that there's success in women not being second class citizen, in the sense of they can also have the opportunities that men can have in world stages, right? So yeah, if a man can be a billionaire, a woman should be able to be a billionaire too. Um, and that can be recorded as
yeah, right.
progress, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there's more female
um
CEOs of the major
right,
banks.
right. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
I'm trying to bring my liberal brain here. So
No, no, no.
maybe
I'm not asking for
putting
your liberal
small,
brain.
small.
I mean,
No, no.
I'm, I'm,
To be
I'm
honest,
saying
because
like,
I think that I'm trying.
yeah.
I need to bring optimism
No, no, no. I'm
to
not. That's not what I'm asking. So I guess I'm
right.
asking. I guess so.
But
If you if
okay,
you
I
if
don't.
you
I don't
think
rate those things. I don't. I
right,
don't.
so
I
so
don't
why are
care.
those things not successes? Like, why can't we? Why? Because of course, like, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
why for those who might count those
Yeah.
things as successes, what would be
Yeah.
your counter response?
I'll just ask you what you also think about capitalism. And if you have
Hmm.
the opinion that, or what you think about working class women, and I don't like to use working class women for Nigeria because Nigerian women, a lot of them are unemployed. So I don't know what that means. Like, what is like a
Right.
working class woman in Nigerian context will look like. But if you're talking to somebody and the person appreciates Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala being on that seat, and they also
Hmm.
understand deeply the need of everyday Nigerian woman to the point where they understand that they need to advocate for something like, let's say, public transportation, because the majority
Hmm.
of women use public transportation. Most houses that are like let's say well-to-do to a certain level would have one car, and who uses the car to work? The father. So the mom has to do public transportation most of the time. So if they understand that they need to advocate for things like that, because majority of women are using that, or they need to. So if people understand that, I wouldn't mind if if they also count, the wins of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the personal wins of those kind of women. Oh, cool. I mean, not really,
Yeah.
because I have an issue with a problem with those kind of institutions. So I just do not
Right.
take them as something that um I don't look at them as a win for her is a win for all of us.
Yeah.
I don't look at it. I just look at it as one woman has won for her own life. It might be at the expense of some people, as it is
Yeah.
when, a man wins for his own life. But I don't, yeah, but I tend to be, I do not want people to stay there and just look at it as equality in this system now means is something. It's really, sometimes I feel bad, honestly, when I see women have to participate in those types of things. Let's say, for example, the US election, where Kamala Harris was
Yeah.
supposed to, you know, um, she was contesting. And for some reason, I
Mhm.
was just like, I don't want this woman to win. I really don't want her to win. And my reason was, I don't want, a quote unquote black woman to lead this empire. I don't want I don't want her face to be on this. I don't want the face of a woman to be,
Mm.
here. So I really feel like sometimes I'm like, I don't want us to participate too much in the system that destroys other people's lives. But if you're
Mm.
like saying, just every day, if I go to school, I've gone to school, I should be able to get the same type of opportunities that a man that has gone to the same type of school should get. And I think in that realm, in the sense of, yeah, when you all go for a job interview, maybe before they would have said, oh no, this woman is going to get married soon, they'll remove your CV. But now they're not going to remove your CV anymore. They'll look at everybody and, look at the person who is more qualified and hire the
Mhm.
person. I think those kind of exposés, those kind of like social conversations help not to remove women from the conversations of, opportunities. So in that way,
Yeah.
yes. But for me,
Mm.
participating, when I see people participating in ruining the world, sometimes I even just feel like, you men should just continue.
Right.
Like, I don't think that, many people say when women participate, maybe the world is going to be better. Because and those things kind of come from a kind of warped mentality too, where you're also thinking that women
Mm.
are kind of like softer than men, so maybe when
Mm.
they get there they will not do what men men do. But no, it's not the
Right.
case. Like, look at Italy, like look at women
What
that
what a man can do, a woman can do better.
Maybe not in politics, but,
in
um,
what
maybe this is tongue in cheek, but maybe in the corporate world. I mean, because
yeah, maybe.
what we are finding out is that banks that 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 at the same time when banks are posting profits that runs in trillions, perhaps this is the first time in Nigerian history that this is happening. That this same period has coincided with the time when women, have become, more women have now become heads and CEOs of this same bank. So
So they're
it's
pulling in more funds.
well,
um
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
I suspect you wouldn't necessarily go that far, right, Emeka, in your
well, that's a tongue in cheek, but it's happening. I can't
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
unobserve
yeah.
that.
So those
Yeah,
two
yeah.
things have coincided. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
also true that at the very same moment as those two things are happening, there was an earthquake in Southeast Asia. I mean, so, but I don't think we should necessarily say that all those three things are related because they
Wow.
because they
No, the thing is, okay, I think if the system does not change and we're operating in this particular system, then women would have to continuously advocate to not be looked down upon. All right. They'll be like, if I have this CV and this person has this CV, or then we should both be considered for the same opportunities. Would I now say that would be wrong? Like you shouldn't.
Mm.
I would leave it. I don't know. I do not have opinion. I do not know anything. I don't know. So go for
Yeah.
it, so in the corporate world, like you said, in the corporate world, everybody has to hustle now. Like we are in a time where you have to hustle to eat, to sleep, to do anything, to pay house rent. So if yeah, so it gives everybody their own pain and opportunities to handle and take by themselves, and deal with by themselves. So women have to do those things by themselves, men have to. So if that's the equality,
Mm.
compared to the previous time, we can say that's a win. But as a generation,
Yeah.
have we progressed? I mean, like as a people right now, do we think we've moved farther away? We can talk about women issues, and then we can then talk about women in community with men.
Right. Right.
So women issue. I generally think women issue, like when they say we should all be feminist. I think someone said something crazy one time. The guy was saying that he would have thought, okay, there's this dude, he's kind of popular in Afro pessimism space, and he was saying
Mm.
something like he would have taught Fanon how to read Fanon, or how to write
Mm.
Fanon better. That was like a very bold statement, right? So when someone says something like we should all be feminist, I think I would teach them how to talk about all of us being feminists in a better way, because there's a lot of things that you think about, like if everybody participated in women exclusive issue, like hormone sciences, it would really help all of us as a community. Like we understand like anger, like even in boys who understand like ADHD more, would understand, because of like the hormone. If all of us participated in studying things that we think are women exclusive, not just women like being in women's business, and women trying to like, we would literally, I think we would have gone further as a society generally.
Mm.
So it's different for, I know a lot of the time everybody's like, train a woman to train the future. I think that's like really basic level people. That's kind of like supposed to be a given. The next level is if we focus on just women specific issue, all of us will be better. I understand that people do take this, and people say it a lot. People that I find to be progressive, men that I find to be progressive to a certain level, they understand this. But I think people do not deeply understand what like investing in a lot of science, in a lot of things that they think is just would have been a whole lot better. When people are like, oh, you guys are weak, or maybe we would have had robots since, maybe we would have had
Mm.
AI since, if it was women that were dealing, robotics or things like that. It's like, okay, I can't do this with my hands. Maybe I would have figured something out. So maybe it would have been farther ahead. Okay, I'm going on a tangent right now. I just talking. But yeah,
Maybe
feel
we
free
would.
to. Yeah, feel free. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. So I think we should all be feminist thing is kind of like broader than just like talking about we should all, um this resource is very scarce. Let's all make sure that when there are five
But
women taking when there are five men there, they should also know when there are is 10 spots, there should be like six men and four women. It's just kind of like surface level.
well, I understand. I observe that this is an observation, and I might be wrong,
Uh-huh.
that there are more men today than previously, I suspect, who identify as feminists, who,
Right.
show solidarity for women issues, even at the expense of being called, quote unquote, pardon my French, pussies,
Or
um,
traitors.
your
Or
traitors.
simp.
Yeah, and guys who are willing to expose, maybe not generally, but within small circles, women circles, what essentially is known as the bro code. So I think that without conceding or saying going as far as saying that that's a win for feminism, but I think that that over time in this last or maybe in the Fourth Republic, not so much in time of our own folks, that there are men who identify with and sympathize with the women folk and issues, that they raise, consistently. And I'll just be, interested in knowing how would you interpret that? How would you contextualize, this, observation or this sort of pattern?
Yeah, I
I mean,
also
numbers
know
might
that.
be small,
hmm I
but
agree, and I think with more information, many people have been able to know more. They have been able to you know shift their stance on some things, or try to be more in community with the people that they have to live with. And I think, yeah, for sure, I know more people that I would say, yeah, they identify as feminists. Or there's one thing of believing in women's right, and then there's another thing as identifying as feminist, and
Right, right.
the ideology of feminism. And I've seen people that are even more progressive than a lot of feminists are when it comes to the issue of women
Yeah, sure.
liberation, right? So there is that. So if someone just says they are feminists, yeah, we can like count, do the math and say, okay, there's like, from 50 it's gone to 100, or 1000, and maybe that's progress. So yeah, we can say that. But you it's the same thing with the women's side, where you're like, yeah, just because somebody identifies as a feminist does not mean that that person has deconstructed a lot of things. They've not deconstructed, like colonialism. They are still they still prefer to be, they're white in their heads. So there are some men that have decided to identify as feminists now because they know it's very hard for them to take care of their family by themselves with their income.
Right. Right, 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 right.
so, so
okay, you have to go there. All right, we'll take
I
that.
mean, I'm sorry, like, yeah.
It
I mean,
happens.
yeah, like there are people that I'll be like, I hear you,
Be
I
like,
hear
oh
you.
yeah, no, no, no. I think women should pay for dinner because
Yeah. Like
they're
we should
equal.
split the bill.
Right.
And I'm like, that's equality. I guess. I mean, I will split, fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen people that have really
Right. As
understood
in
what's
you
going on.
split, as in you call your Uber to leave, right? Split in the sense of bounce.
With vex money.
So I
Yeah.
don't I don't believe in, like, financial. I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah.
so yeah, so there are
No, no,
people
no,
that I've
that's not
seen.
the subject of debate today. So
Right, right,
you're
right.
off the
So
hook. Yeah.
I'm trying to still keep to yours seriousness. So let's stay on that.
We're very, very serious people here.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've seen men that they've not learned anything, and they've heard one or two things, and they're like, they say men are dying quick. Please, oh me, I'm not going to die quick. Oh, let me share this thing with my wife. I guess
Mm.
that's a win too. We'll take that. We've seen people that they've worked with women, and they're like, when I'm working with women and the women are working in the marketing department, we have a lot more money, like you said, like we have a lot more clients. So yeah, let's
There are
employ
narratives
more
like that.
women. Hmm?
Oh, there are narratives like that too.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, but I think in the banking sector nowadays, marketing
right.
is
In the
gonna be
banking
like
sector,
100%
Mm-hmm.
or 95% women, right?
yeah,
Probably.
if they feel like, yeah, we hire more women are, there are people that will tell you, no, I love to work with women, or 90% of people that are working I'm going to work with are going to they have to be women, because now
The
we
perception being they're like
appreciate.
more persuasive, quote unquote.
Yeah, they feel like, yeah, they're more persuasive. They are also more like, they can, nowadays we're living in a time of social media, they can do more. you know you speak to people, a lot of people want to listen to women more. So
Mm.
there are many people that are employing women now. Even they prefer to employ women. They'll tell you, yes, we are feminists here. But then it's just, yeah, women's labor. Maybe you don't have to put a lot more
Mm.
work into women to exploit women, but it's okay, we're gonna take it, we'll take it, you're a feminist. So we
Right.
we
So,
have.
in fact, that was you're kind of addressing, sorry to interrupt you, but you're kind of addressing a
Yeah.
question I thought was going to be, perhaps my last one, and maybe Emeka's got some to come in after mine, but you know, to allow you step back from your liberal brain if that's what's happening. I mean, to borrow your terms, because
Yeah.
you've been battling with a question that I think we're all battling with here, and it's kind of like, is women's increasing incorporation into the capitalist system progress? You know, and like I guess, yeah, I hear you saying that there is a kind of like um both structural and cultural phenomenon that has occurred whereby we're seeing more women having to work, and then we're also seeing more women and men saying, okay, they're feminists because it's more economically viable to include women nowadays in a lot of sectors. But like concretely for you, like if I've heard you correctly, and if these phenomena are indeed occurring in Nigeria, like do you see that as something to celebrate, and is that an achievement? And if not, then what's missing, I guess, from the conversation or from the dynamic that would, you know, demonstrate actual progress?
Okay. I think um it is something to it would be something that we can try to celebrate if we can actually
Yeah.
if we can actually get to a place where we would all see one another as people. Like,
Okay.
so then the conversation can start with we're just working together, it's cooperation, whatever. But we understand policies, like it has to come. The thing is, everything is interconnected. So even if you're working with someone, you're going to have to you'll be talking about other political decisions that's affecting you, other like other things that's affecting you. So maybe there's now more space for a lot more opinions to be on the table than if everybody that was there was like it was just men, all men. So
Right.
maybe you might not be able to hear any other perspective. But if you're working with women and you see that the woman you're working with, you see how maybe she's like you might never have understood maybe sexual harassment until you're working
Mm,
with a woman, and then you guys you're both colleagues, and then but your guy is like always calling her or
mm,
always like doing something, then you'll be like, even as a man you would also be like, oh no, like okay. And then you might have to start asking your sisters, is this what you're also going through at work? So maybe if there's a chance and opportunity to change that or vote for or against that, you would vote accordingly. So maybe you're now, yes, so if everybody were all in the same space participating in the same society, you'll be able to
yeah.
feel other people's pain, and then you'll be able to also interact with people in such a way that it will help you too. So I think we can consider that to be a good thing. So yeah,
Mm,
I think we can consider that to be a good thing if we're all going to be participating, and like everybody's opinion, everybody can have the opportunity to have their own opinions on the table and perspective. So
right.
I think it could take
Okay.
us to other places. I think that's a good way. Ah,
Okay.
whoa,
Okay.
ah, like
No, thank you for
yes.
that response. I
Right.
mean, you've been under a bit of pressure, so we should probably relieve the pressure. Um, on the call, I mean, the pressure in society will only get worse. Anyway, but jokes apart, thank you for your input there, and thank you for joining us on the show. And I mean, I thank you for also trying to summarize the conversation in somewhat optimistic terms. Um,
Yeah, I'm also
I
glad
hope
I
we.
was able to do that. I'll be like, what? How come? Do I hate everybody?
No,
Because,
um,
yeah.
no, but it also, it's perfectly understandable if, no, thank you for
Yes.
that response. I
Right.
mean, you think that things aren't going well because, to be honest, in a lot of ways they aren't. And I think you've done a good job of pointing out some of those ways. And the last thing I would have wanted to do, is to kind of try to wrap things up with a false sense of optimism just because. Yeah, I mean, I think you've done a good job of providing a balanced perspective. So that's much
Yeah, but what do you
appreciated.
think? What do you think? You think that the
Mm,
world is better?
the world, no, definitely not. Um, um, yeah. Okay, so maybe I'll give a take and then hear Emeka's take. I guess no, I like your summary. In fact, I think I'm going to probably endorse what you said about the fact that the difficulties of the current economy, the neoliberal economy, have um, provided some openings in a sense for women to participate in the workplace. But at the same time, that is participation in a different kind of exploitation, you know. And in fact, the exploitation in the workplace by the boss has to be balanced against the exploitation at home. So in a sense, maybe the exploitations have doubled rather than gone away, right? And I think yeah, that's something that you were sort of alluding to that I think we can't escape. But perhaps that economic exploitation has also come with some more room to speak up, you know, because at least women now um, don't have to ask the man of the house for access to the media as much as before, right? So maybe that's why we're seeing a lot more, or at least a little more, of women's empowerment, women's rights, or even feminist discourse online, for instance. Um, so I think, yeah, if that aligns with a lot of what you said, which I feel like it does, then I think we're on fairly similar pages. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's based on that a contradictory trend, and not one that one could just easily call progress. At least that's how I feel. Mega, do you want to do your own spiel?
I think the answer to the question depends on what side of the divide that one stands on.
But
Um,
is there a divide?
I
Mm.
mean, I think it's something that you were speaking to a lot. You know, that's the undertone that I get from how you responded to the question. I mean, I think you just avoided trouble by not saying that there are kinds of feminism within Nigeria, and that there's that the more popular feminist perspective is the big man or big woman feminism, or
Right, the bourgeois or lucky feminist
leggy
perspective.
feminist
Okay,
perspective.
okay, I thought when you talked about the divide, I was thinking you were talking about like men and women side, not
No,
really internally
no,
within that.
no, no,
Okay,
no, not quite.
go
I'm
ahead.
speaking,
Sorry.
wholesomely now. So it's that sort of feminist that would see an Okonjo-Iweala as a super story, or that would see an Obi Ezekwesili as a rise, as a profile, that sort of thing that they would love to emulate, and to a large extent, those are the kinds of feminists that Chimamanda speaks for, you know. Right. Okay. And then this also fulfills the kinds of issues that they decide to take on or that they decide to tackle. Um, y- yeah. So it's like I said, the answer would then depend on where one stands. But if you were talking about real bread and butter issues, um, then there might be a critique of the kinds of feminisms that exist within the country or even Africa, at much broader scale, as to what kinds of work is being done. So take for instance FEMCO. Nobody's heard about them since after SARS, and it's
Right.
not like the kind of work that they were committed to doing during the SARS. It's not like the need for that work doesn't exist, even more now. It's just that um, I think that once they got their encomiums, that's that's where that that's where that that came to a head, at that point. So that's in a nutshell my own response,
Yeah.
so that I also stay out of trouble too. But yeah.
Yeah. So unsurprisingly, it comes back to class for Emeka. It sounds like.
Horrifically, yes.
And yes, I think I agree. Um, but I think, yeah, the wider picture that Haleesa has provided, which incorporates the class question, but considers other elements of the debate. Has been
Yeah.
enlightening.
Talking about class, there's a way we talk about class that most at times, like for African people, we kind of have to put our Africanness above class, so that there are people that would debate. Of course, there are different people that would rank it differently. Some people say class first before race. Some people say race first before class. And I think there should also be that kind of space for people to debate, even though it's going
Yeah.
on. But I think that many people tend to shut women down when people are talking about women only or women specific issue. They would say that there's no enough class consciousness. I'm also one of the people that would say, please, let's be class conscious when we're talking about these things. But then we see a woman like what's her name, Natasha Akpoti, in the Senate, go through sexual harassment. So I wish that I wanted to be more angry, but I was just like, this woman is not going to fight for me, or she's not going to fight for anybody that I consider to be in my class. Even though I look at her in whatever class she thinks that she is, she's still going to get harassed and humiliated and whatever. But you're just like, it's kind of like these things where you have to pick your battle sometimes too, but you
Mm.
also know that there are many kind of issues that you're like, regardless of the class that some women have been able to go to, you just sympathize with it, and you kind of like just say, okay, no, I'm going to pick my battles. I'm only going to pick battles of women that identify with my class because I have 24 hours in a day. But there's still very much a lot of issues that a lot of women have not been able to sort of escape regardless.
Yeah.
So we also go through that kind of like um battle where we are like, sometimes I support women's right and wrong. I'm
Yeah.
not that. I'm just speaking for a lot of women that I know. They'll be like, you know what, I'm just still going to support women because we are not the ones that put ourselves in this first.
Mm.
Maybe when we are in a more equal society, or when we are in a more um in a better, then we can say, okay, let's prosecute whatever. But I don't know, it's just that kind of conversation where we're like, we're still going to talk about women specific issue, and then we'll talk about class. But when we see that the conversations about women specific issue is leaving class alone, then you have to know where to draw the line and say, no, we're not you guys. Okay, that's your issue, that's not our issue. So we have to like draw that line, and I guess separate it. But class consciousness is very important. There are a lot of women that, we feel bad for you, we feel bad for your conditions, but you don't belong to this. You don't belong to what we are talking about. Like you don't belong to the majority of us. And we know that you will not stand for a majority of us. So we just have to stand for ourselves. Self-preservation first.
Mm. Mhm.
But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough. I think those are useful additions. No, we've kept you for quite long, so I mean, I think we could probably keep talking for a while, but I suspect this is as good a time
Mm,
as any to let you
yeah.
go. So once again, Lisa, it's been delightful. Thank you for making
Yeah.
time to
Thank
to speak
you.
to us
Thank
today.
you. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, and we
I'm
should do
glad
this
to
again,
have been.
I think.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, I make her. Thanks for your time too.
and you
Excellent.
too.
Okay,
Yeah.
not bad. I mean, it's officially over now, I think.
Okay.